PBS. Give to your PBS station so future generations can keep asking, what if?
Wyoming PBS, in partnership with Wyoming Public Media and the Wyoming Business Report, are proud to bring you Election 2014, Wyoming's primary choices.
Good evening and welcome to Election 2014, Wyoming's primary choices. This is the third night in a series of debates among candidates in contested races in Wyoming's August primary elections. Tonight we have 4 Republican candidates who are all vying for the party's nomination for Wyoming's Secretary of State. Also, it's worth noting that there are no Democrats running for the office, so this is a vital debate. We're in the Little Theater on the campus of Central Wyoming College, and I'm Craig Blumenshine from Wyoming PBS. With me in the studio tonight are Wyoming journalists Steve Peck and Aaron Schrank. Steve is the editor and publisher of The Ranger, Fremont County's daily newspaper. And Aaron is an education reporter from Wyoming Public Media. Steve and Aaron, welcome. That's great. August 19th is primary election day in Wyoming, and it's our goal tonight to provide an opportunity for voters to connect with the candidates and hear what they have to say as they debate side by side, discussing issues that are important to Wyoming. I now want to introduce our 4 candidates, and then we'll briefly review the rules and format of tonight's debate. Ed Murray is a 4th-generation Wyoming native and was born and raised in Laramie County. He was graduated from Cheyenne Central High School in 1976 and went on to receive a degree in business administration with dual majors in finance and real estate. Following his college graduation, Ed earned his Juris Doctor degree at the University of Wyoming College of Law before returning to Cheyenne to put his education to use by starting his own business. Ed is married and has raised 4 daughters in Cheyenne. Ed, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ed Buchanan grew up farming and ranching in Goshen County and earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of Wyoming. After his undergraduate work, Ed received a commission as an officer in the United States Air Force, where he served as an intelligence advisor to senior level officers in the Department of Defense. While stationed in Colorado, Ed received his Master's of Arts in Public Administration from the University of Colorado. Upon his return to civilian life, Ed attended law school at the University of Wyoming, graduating in 1998. Ed was elected to the Wyoming State Legislature in 2002 and served for 10 years. He served as Majority Whip and Chairman of the Judiciary Committee from 2006 to 2008, Majority Floor Leader from 2008 to 2010, and was the Speaker of the Wyoming House of Representatives from 2010 to 2012. He left the legislature in 2012, adhering to a self-imposed term limit. Ed, welcome.
Great to be here, Craig. Thanks.
Clark Stith was born and raised in Addison, Kansas, a small town on the Missouri River north of Kansas City. Clark's mom and dad were members of the Greatest Generation, those persons who spent their childhood in the Great Depression and came of age during World War II. During the war, Clark's dad served in the Air Force while his mom worked at the Boeing factory in Wichita, Kansas, putting rivets in B-17 aircraft. Clark has obtained his degrees in electrical engineering and philosophy from the University of Kansas and a law degree from Georgetown University, after which he then started work at a large law firm in Washington, D.C. He has 2 children and has lived in Rock Springs since 1997, where he practices business law and serves on the Rock Springs City Council. Clark became chairman of the Sweetwater County Republican Party in 2001. Clark, welcome to you.
Thank you.
Pete Illoway is a former member of the Wyoming House of Representatives, serving House District 42 from 1999 through 2013. He served as Majority Whip from 2003 to 2005 and served as chairman of the House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivision Committee. Pete received his degree from Colorado State University in Farm and Ranch Management Economics in 1963 and began his career working for the USDA Statistician's Office in Cheyenne. He later worked for the Wyoming Department of Agriculture as state agronomist, weed and pest control, and agricultural economist. Moving to the private sector, Pete worked for Wycon Chemical Company, Coastal Chem, Inc., and in a variety of positions and until his retirement in 1997. Welcome.
Thank you, Craig. Welcome.
Here's how tonight's debate will flow. Steve, Aaron, and I will alternate asking questions to the candidates, and each candidate will take turns in answering each question first. Each will then have 60 seconds to answer, and the first to answer will be allowed a 20-second rebuttal. Candidate, we encourage you to watch the green, amber, and red signals in front of you. When the light glows red, you may complete your sentence, but then that will signal that your time is up. Also, we want to ask our live audience to refrain from applause until the debate has ended. As we've done in the past, in the middle of tonight's debate, we'll have what we call a lightning round, where each candidate will have 15 seconds each to respond to short phrased questions, and then we'll have no rebuttals during the lightning round. With that, we're ready to begin the debate. Mr. Murray, you'll have the first question, and it will come from me. Compared to the other three candidates on stage with you tonight, what is your greatest strength that would allow you to be the most successful Secretary of State? Additionally, tell us what your top 2 priorities are day one in the office.
Thank you, Craig. My name is Ed Murray. I'm a 4th-generation Wyoming native, born and raised in Laramie County. My core values are faith, family, and freedom. I've been married 28 years to my beautiful wife attending here tonight, and we're the proud parents of 4 daughters. Truly, blessed am I among these women. I'm most qualified to serve as your Secretary of State, and my strongest asset is precisely because I'm from the private business sector. I'm a businessman, and I'm interested in all citizens of Wyoming being able to have the freedom to pursue their own dreams. As a young man with nothing but a used pickup truck and some faith, I started my own dream, which was a real estate development and investment company. And over the next 25, 30 years, we've extended roads, curbs, gutter, water, sewer, electric, telephone, providing hundreds and hundreds of housing opportunities, providing tens of, many jobs, hundreds of jobs, and creating churches and schools and everything. And I want to be able to go into the office, my first 2 priorities, and take that spirit, take that freedom, a free enterprise, into the office, and then also complete some technological changes which will make us even more business friendly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan, same question.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for the question. My qualifications for the Office of Secretary of State stem from my military service, my business experience, and my legislative experience. My service to the United States Air Force as a senior level advisor to Department of Defense officials taught me a leadership style that was based in civility and respect, and I carried that with me in life. And it's one of those things where you treat people with civility and respect, you earn their respect, and you can get things done, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you can get things done for the state of Wyoming. My business experience primarily involves working in areas with Secretary of State as far as corporate formation and rules and regulations, so I'm intimately familiar with many of the important duties of the office. And finally, my legislative experience required me to work closely with the Secretary of State's office in developing improvements to the Wyoming Corporations Act to fight fraud in Wyoming. My top 2 priorities going in: open and transparent government with agency rules and regulation, and to be an ambassador to the state of Wyoming, representing all of Wyoming in Cheyenne.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
Thank you. My name is Clark Stith, and I'm running for Secretary of State because the people of Wyoming deserve a state government that is smaller, cleaner, and more transparent. My day job for the past 23 years as a business lawyer has been to deal with the same laws that the Secretary of State administers: corporations, limited liability companies, securities law, and the like. In addition, with respect to elections law, and the Secretary of State is the Chief Elections Officer, I have been chairman of the Sweetwater County Republican Party twice, and I've also had the privilege of arguing 2 election law cases before the Wyoming Supreme Court. So the core responsibilities of the office are right in my wheelhouse. With respect to my priorities, I have introduced what I call the Small Government Toolkit. We have to find a way to stop the one-way ratchet of government growth. Wyoming has the unfortunate distinction of ranking #1 among the 50 states for having the highest percentage of its labor force employed by the federal, state, and local governments. We can do better. And when you exclude federal workers and you exclude education workers, we still rank #1. So what I would like to do is to streamline the office and take our current paper-based system, put that online. So the 2 priorities are to have an online original filing system and also to weed out the 3/4 of the companies that are actually phony companies. My name is Clark Stith, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you very much. Experience matters has been my theme for the campaign. My experience in agriculture, banking, business, legislation, and economic development provides the foundation for working on the boards that the Secretary of State sits on. Additionally, my 14 years on the Corporations Committee, and as chairman of that committee, I worked alongside Secretary Maxfield and his staff, crafting and updating legislation on issues important to that office and the people of the state. No other candidate has that side-by-side experience with the office. I've also spent 24 years in the private sector, and I've used that experience and knowledge to build with economic development activities, not only in Cheyenne, but also in the state, as I sit on the Wyoming Business Council. I'm an active member of my community, serving on the Cheyenne Airport Board, the Chamber's Military Affairs Committee. The two options that you asked for, first I want to meet with the legislature immediately, Joint Appropriations Committee, and then meet with the staff and put their thoughts at ease.
Mr. Illoway, thank you very much. Now proceed to longer form questions. Aaron Schrank from Wyoming Public Media will ask the first question of Mr. Buchanan.
Mr. Buchanan, the Center for Public Integrity ranks Wyoming 49th in the country for its lobbying disclosure requirements. Should the state require more complete reporting of how lobbyists spend money in their efforts to influence elected lawmakers? Why or why not?
Thanks for the question, Aaron. I believe that the rules and regulations regarding lobbyists in Wyoming largely do the job they're intended to do. We really don't have an issue with lobbyists in Wyoming doing anything that's unethical. It's a small state. When they come to the legislature, their integrity is on the line, and they realize as well as anybody that if they were to mislead anybody or do anything that was disingenuous, their reputation would be ruined, and they wouldn't work with the legislature again. Having said that, there are just a couple of areas where it could be improved. The reporting limit for money spent on a single event, I would consider that we could raise that a little bit so that some of those things would require reporting. But by and large, I think our system works well. When I hear these statistics, I look for examples, and I'm never provided any that require it. I think sometimes it's a problem or a solution that's looking for a problem that doesn't exist.
Mr. Buchanan, thank you. Mr. Stith.
Well, the issue, of course, with lobbying is disclosure. And if you have the sunshine of disclosure, then that takes care of conflicts of interest. We are a small state, so it happens that people will have relatives, they'll have friends, they'll have business interests. And the point is, so long as you disclose that up front, then that takes care of it. One of my campaign planks is transparency. I want to see that in the Secretary of State's office to implement what the legislature has approved of making the rules database searchable, making sure that ordinary people can find out the rules and regulations that apply to them. With respect to transparency, another part of my small government toolkit is to make sure that out-of-state companies that don't do business here, don't live here, don't own anything here, don't buy or sell anything here, that they have to disclose who the beneficial owners of their companies are, so we know who they really are.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you, Craig. In regards to lobbying, lobbyists in this state provide a great service to the citizen legislator. I have served as a lobbyist several times, before I was in the legislature and after. And I'm going to agree with my former speaker, Ed Buchanan, because I haven't seen any problems with lobbying, with lobbyists, and as he said, if you tell a lie, you're gone. You're not going to be a lobbyist ever again in this state. With a citizen legislature, those folks need a lobbyist because they don't know everything on every bill. There's 400 plus bills. A lobbyist can help, and they provide a real service to the citizen legislator.
Mr. Illoway, thank you. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Craig. Being from the private business sector and having traveled all across the state, 40,000 miles, and listening carefully to the concerns of people, citizens are very, very interested in transparency and want straightforward, straight-shooting government. We need to ensure that. Now, nationally, the DC lobbying that goes on, Abramhoff and Abscam and things of this nature, it does raise a question in people's mind as to how the process works. We want our legislature to be free from any undue influence. Now, lobbyists, in meeting with them and in trying to get my arms around this ranking and this serious situation, I intend to form a committee with the lobbyists. I've already met with the president and vice president of the Capitol Club to ensure that there's good communication so that any concerns that are being expressed about conflicts of interest can be resolved. I do support increased reporting on a quarterly basis and online transparency where we can see. Thank you.
Mr. Murray, thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan, a rebuttal if you would like.
Just briefly, we do have disclosure laws in place. We do have transparency laws in place. I want that to be clear to the public, and I think they work well now. Just one area where we might want to take a look at would be the amounts of money threshold that would require additional reporting.
Thank you very much. Our next question from the Ranger, Steve Peck, for Mr. Stith. Mr. Stith, excuse me.
Thanks, Fred. Candidates, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity. Sir, many states are relaxing their voting processes, permitting early voting, drive-through voting, online voting, voting by mail. Anticipating your position as the head of elections in the state, what do you think of these trends, and where do you see Wyoming headed regarding these evolving voting procedures?
Steve, thank you so much for the question. When I was chairman of the Sweetwater County Republican Party, Democrats outnumbered Republicans 2-1 in Sweetwater County. And I knew that for us to win elections as Republicans there, we would have to change that and get more people registered. So I found a piece of existing Wyoming election law that allows for absentee registration. And we used that, and we went door to door registering people, and that's allowed right now. We could use technology, so long as we preserve the integrity of the process, we could have online registration, but you would have to really tighten it up, and there are two concerns. One is cybersecurity, and the other is when someone actually comes to vote, you'd have to make sure that they are who they say they are. So for a first-time voter who has registered online, hypothetically, if we set that system up, then you would want to make sure that they really are who they say they are and that they're eligible to vote. So I want to do what we can to take advantage of all of the technology we can to make sure that we expand the franchise so as many people get involved as possible.
Mr. Stith, thank you. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you, Craig. We already have early voting in Wyoming. It's 40 days before the election. We also have absentee voting, so you can call the county clerk and ask for a ballot and fill it out and send it back in, and then you can vote at the election. So I think we've done quite a lot with voting. On the other hand, we need to look at e-poll books to make it so it's a little bit friendlier for those folks to go when they vote. We need to go out and talk to high school students and junior college and college students and tell them why it is important to vote. We do have a problem in some cases with folks not voting. One vote is important, and we need to make sure that everybody understands that one vote is important.
Thank you, Mr. Illoway. Mr. Murray.
I want to safeguard fair elections and increase voter turnout. Some of these trends that are occurring in other states are good. In Wyoming, we are, as a chief election officer, I'd be working with the clerks of every county. And so I've been listening to them. I've been through every county numerous times and hearing their ideas for how to increase voter registration and how to increase voter turnout. What I'm hearing is the use of a technology such as e-poll books or voting centers. And here we are in Fremont County, for example. If I live in Riverton but work in Lander, if it's convenient for me to vote in Lander, that is where I would go to vote. And so that would increase accessibility, and that's the idea, is to increase voter turnout while safeguarding the integrity of the voting system.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you. One of the points in my 5-point plan to improve government, it specifically addresses this area. We need to be proactive when it comes to increasing voter turnout, increasing registration, but we also need proactive in preventing election fraud, because really nothing else matters if we lose the integrity of our election. So I think it's a two-part piece. It's not only using technology, but it's also putting the safeguards in place when you use that technology, because as you make things easier, which is a good thing, you also make things easier for fraud as well. The second piece is education, and the Secretary of State has a unique opportunity to go out educate the public on the importance of voting, on the importance of being involved, and the difference it makes in our democracy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith, a rebuttal if you wish.
Yes, I believe that we've got to increase voter participation, and I want to conclude by saying through our efforts, Republicans outnumber Democrats in Sweetwater County today.
Thank you very much. I'll ask the next question to Mr. Illoway. Wyoming, most claim, is among the most business-friendly states in our country. Some politicians tout that. But is it too easy for corporations to hide in Wyoming and play fast and loose because of our business-friendly climate? Which laws regarding corporations in Wyoming do you believe need modified now?
Greg, thank you for the question. In 2009 and 2010, when I was chairman of the Corporations Committee, Secretary Maxfield came to us with the request that we take a look at the Business Corporations Act, the LLCs, the registered agents, and tighten those up. And we worked long and hard for a couple years working on those particular pieces of legislation. They were passed. We took care of some of the registered agent problem, but when you pass a law and you don't go back and take a look at it, it needs to go back. We need to go back now and see if it is doing what we intended it to do and if it needs to be tightened up. It becomes a legislative issue where the Secretary of State goes back to the legislature, to that committee, and says, we need to take a look at doing more, or are we fine? That's where I want to go.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Craig. First of all, we need to make sure that Wyoming maintains the mantra of remaining business friendly. And a lot of this has to do with policy that the Secretary of State can advocate for. We need to keep low taxes. We need to continue no income taxes, no corporate taxes, and give incentive for businesses to come and do business here. With respect to the actual corporation laws, I'm intimately familiar with them, being in business for the last 25 years and having literally dozens of entities set up through the Secretary of State's office. I think we're good in terms of friendliness. We could be more friendly, however, if we had online registration, which could allow us to do in hours what currently takes 4 or 5 days in some cases. We need to continue to fight fraud. And in doing so, I will be a strong advocate for being business friendly while being tough on fraud. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you. I think we've done a good job in fighting fraud. The piece of legislation that was referred to, the Wyoming Business Corporations Act, improvements were made to that with regard to registered agents and physical addresses to stop some of the fraud that was being perpetrated in Wyoming. One of the areas I think we could improve on would be customer service in the sense of using technology in areas like the Uniform Commercial Code or effective finance statements. Those things matter to commerce. They matter specifically to agriculture and banking, and I think those are important. And when you add those improvements to our favorable tax structure, Wyoming will remain a business-friendly state, and that's the way it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Stith.
Thank you for the question. As a business lawyer in the trenches, I see how this plays out. In 2006, the United States Financial Crimes Enforcement Network listed Delaware, Wyoming, and Nevada as 3 problem states that were particularly friendly to international scams and frauds. The 2010 amendments to the corporation statutes were an improvement. However, even by the Secretary of State's own informal estimate, as many as 3/4 of the companies that call Wyoming home right now have no genuine business ties to Wyoming. The second part of my small business toolkit addresses that issue in a way that does not require us to create a whole new bureaucracy, and it's this. First, you find out if the person, you add 2 lines to the questionnaire. You ask if the person, do you own land here? Do you do business here? Do you live here? Because it's very unlikely you're committing fraud if you're doing that. But if you don't, if you're in the Cayman Islands, then the next question would require disclosure of who the beneficial owners of the company are. The privilege of limited liability should not come with anonymity for out-of-staters. Wyoming should not sell its good name for a $100 filing fee. That would be a priority for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stith. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you. We need to embrace technology in that particular division of the Secretary of State's office. We do need to do filing online. We do need to do more work. But as I said, we did pass we did update those laws. We need to go back and make sure that they're doing what was supposed to happen. If they're not, we need to get the legislature to help us out and make them stronger.
Mr. Illoway, thank you very much. Now is the point of the debate that we think will be fun. We call it the lightning round. We'll throw short phrase topics at you, such as term limits, and you respond with a short, spontaneous answer. After that, we'll get back to our longer form questions. Aaron Schrank from Wyoming Public Media will throw the first topic out for Mr. Murray.
Mr. Murray, alternative energy.
Alternative energy is here. Recently proposed is Chokecherry. It will be the North America's largest wind farm. Let's embrace it. Wyoming needs to embrace all new alternative energy sources.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan.
Alternative energy is something that should definitely be considered, but not at the expense of our core industries in the state of Wyoming. I don't think all the alternative energies are feasible at this point, nor are they cost effective.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
Alternative energy has become a euphemism for the Obama administration's war on coal. When I see a wind turbine, what I see are taxpayer dollars that are going into wind energy developers' pockets. It's a subsidy. I don't mind wind energy, but it should stand on its own. Right now it doesn't.
Thank you, Mr. Illoway.
Wind and photovoltaic will not sustain this nation. Coal, natural gas will, and we need to fight back against the Obama administration.
Thank you very much. Our second lightning round question from Steve Peck from The Ranger. For Mr. Buchanan first.
Limits on corporates and wealthy individual funding of political campaigns.
You know, that becomes a First Amendment issue, and it's one of those things where there's no doubt that people have the freedom to contribute as much as they want to their campaigns. But at some point, it can influence elections, and I think it's a constitutional issue, the First Amendment, and courts could rule that they have a compelling interest and a rational basis in that issue to set limits.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Mr. Stith.
I support the First Amendment free speech rights, and if a person wants to spend their own money on their campaign, they should have the right to do that. What matters is the voters having information so the voters know what they're voting for, who they're voting for, and what they're going to get.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
The Supreme Court recently came down saying that folks could give more money to their campaign folks, to those running. We have not gotten that into our election code in Wyoming. We need to do that, and it's up to anybody that wants to spend their own money.
Thank you. Mr. Murray.
It's all about transparency, knowing where that money comes from. The cap on individuals is $1,000. It's going to be raised to $2,500 as a result of legislation by my political colleagues here. The cap on the other contributions is $5,000, and it's all about transparency.
Thank you very much. For me, for Mr. Stith, heartbeat away from governor.
Wyoming has a colorful early history of Secretary of State stepping in to fill the vacancy and promptly abusing the privilege. One of the first Secretary of States who stepped in promptly pardoned a criminal friend of his, and another one asked to be paid 2 salaries. I would not do that. I'm ready to hit the floor running should that arise.
Thank you. Mr. Illoway.
The Secretary of State is the acting governor. If the governor is incapacitated or out of state, he is the acting governor. He never becomes governor. And I would continue the governor's projects without any hesitation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray.
It's all about integrity, honesty, character. We need to make sure that the successor to the governor in the case of a vacancy can fulfill the constitutional requirements and defend the Constitution with openness and transparency.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan.
As Secretary of State, I would participate in regular briefings with the governor's office just to be prepared in such an event were to occur. And I think you get briefings from the cabinet and the policy analysts, and you see what's effective and working, and you go with what's working and you stop what's not.
Thank you very much. Our next lightning round question from Aaron Schrank for Mr. Illoway.
Mr. Illoway, Tea Party.
Tea Party was in Boston. There are some folks that have formed a Tea Party in various parts of the country. It becomes more right-wing less conservative.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray.
Tea Party is a very active movement. It's changed the landscape of politics in the United States. It's a movement that wants government under control. Enough of the bailouts, enough of big spending government.
Mr. Buchanan.
Tea Party, I think, has been helpful for politics overall. I think it adds another voice, another piece of the spectrum to the entire discussion that makes it healthier for everybody.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
The Tea Party has been healthy for the Republican Party because it's focused on fiscal issues. We've got to find a way to make government smaller, to right-size it so the government sector doesn't become too large.
Thank you very much. The next lightning round question for Mr. Murray first from Steve Peck.
Wyoming Business Council.
It's a very important council created in 1998 to provide for future generations diversification in our economy from the big three: energy, ag, and tourism.
Thank you. Mr. Buchanan.
Very important to diversify Wyoming's economy. Been in place for 16 years. We complained for decades that our kids are leaving the state. We need to diversify our economy and grow business. I think they do a good job. We've amended our Constitution and our laws to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
The state government has an appropriate role to build out infrastructure and do things that the private market would not provide. I'm against corporate welfare. I'm against handouts to private corporations. We shouldn't walk past an old friend to make a new one.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
As a member of the Wyoming Business Council, it is not corporate welfare. It has continued to evolve over the years since it was formed. It has provided many communities infrastructure that they would not ordinarily be able to have through grants and loans.
Thank you very much. We have one more lightning round question available, and I'll have Aaron Schrank from Wyoming Public Media throw out that topic.
This is to Mr. Stith.
It is.
Governor Matt Mead.
Governor Mead has done a good service to Wyoming in that state government employment peaked in 2010 at about 8,600 employees, and under Governor Mead it has come down. Unfortunately, state government employment has actually increased in the Secretary of State's office, so my goal would be to streamline the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway?
Governor Mead has done an excellent job. As far as the Secretary of State's office, there are 31 total people in that office, including the Secretary of State. Right now, have no idea who should be cut or why. That office is extremely busy. It brings in $38 million in a biennium, and their biennial expenditure is $7 million. So,
thank you very much. Mr. Murray?
Governor Mead is a good man that deserves our respect. There's a few issues that I've disagreed with him on, and we've discussed those. I will support any candidate that the Wyoming people select as our next governor and look forward to working with him or her.
Thank you. Mr. Buchanan.
Good man, always listened when I was Speaker of the House. I've had personal conversations with him. I've told him what I've enjoyed about his administration and what I have not enjoyed. And like Mr. Murray, I would work with any candidate that's elected to do the best for Wyoming.
Thank you very much, candidates. We're running just a little behind, so we're going to cut out one of our lightning round questions and resume our long-form questions right now. The next question will be for you first, Mr. Illoway, from Steve Peck of the Ranger.
Thank you. Senate File 104 attempted and briefly succeeded in removing the elected state superintendent of public instruction from day-to-day administrative functions in the Wyoming Department of Education. Earlier, the state auditor's position in Wyoming was reframed to be more ceremonial. Are you concerned that the same thing might happen to the Secretary of State's position?
Not at all, Mr. Peck. The Senate File 104 is a mess, and the auditor's position is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it works very well. That's enough.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Senate File 104 depicts what I'm going to characterize as the good old boy, lifetime politician type of process. And it's really too bad that it occurred. It deeply divided our Republican Party. And for this reason, I think that I will be a very good alternative to any of my opponents up here who have had long-term political careers. We need new blood And the new blood will ensure that there's a perspective from the people. The people don't like this Senate File 104. I can tell you, I'm not concerned that the Secretary of State's office is going to be disenfranchised because the people of Wyoming will not allow that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buchanan.
Simply put, Senate File 104 was wrong. Mr. Murray has his facts wrong, and he references me as some type of career politician. I spent 10 years as a citizen legislator, ran a business and met a payroll at the same time. And when it came to 104, when I was Speaker in 2010-2012, I stopped an effort just like Senate File 104 because they were playing politics and personalities. When I left is when Senate File 104 happened. To the second question, I don't see the Secretary of State's office ever becoming ceremonial simply because it performs so many exhaustive, essential functions for the state. Elections, corporations, registrar of agency rules, and a member of the SLIB board.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
Well, I was against Senate File 104 and said so at the time. But when you step back and look at the big picture, what Senate File 104 and the saga that ensued from that shows is that our system works. The Wyoming Supreme Court stepped in and told the legislature effectively, well, you overstepped your bounds. And the music of that opinion is one of separation of powers and the idea that when the framers of our Constitution decided to have a split executive with 5 elected state officials, the framers of the Wyoming Constitution meant that. I would hope that the legislature would not attempt to try to do that to the Secretary of State's office. I certainly would not expect that.
Thank you. Mr. Illoway, a rebuttal.
It's interesting that Ed likes to say politician, yet he wants to be one. Politicians are citizen legislators, and that's what we have in this state.
Thank you very much. For Mr. Murray, the next question is from me. Have you analyzed the Secretary of State's website? Is it as good as it can be, and is it an effective communication tool for the office? If it's not, what would you like to change?
I'm going to use half my time to address your question specifically. Yes, I've looked at the website. It needs updated. It needs streamlined. With respect to the agency rules and regulations, we really need to make that a useful, meaningful exercise for businessmen and women. I want to use the balance of my time to address this politician new blood theme that I hear going on here. And the problem is that none of these other opponents up here are for term limits. They've all gone on the record as being against term limits. I'm the only one up here who is for term limits. Thank you.
Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you very much. I have reviewed the website. It's been my opinion, because I look at it all the time, it's improved immensely in the last year or so. I think it's true one of the points in my 5-point plan in open government is to make the rules and regulations more accessible to the public, because I think if they get involved in the process and in management council, we get a better product. We get less regulation, and the regulations we do have are reasonable and they make sense. That's one area where it could be improved.
Thank you. Mr. Stith.
Thank you. The Secretary of State's website actually has improved quite significantly just in the last several months. It's more user-friendly right now. The legislature approved about $700,000 in just this last session to make the agency rules database searchable by the public. As part of my small government toolkit, I have proposed that for out-of-state companies that aren't really doing any genuine business here, that they should have to disclose their beneficial ownership, that is who they really are. Because, for example, Colorado marijuana dealers may want to who have trouble establishing bank accounts at Wells Fargo because Wells Fargo doesn't want to take the money, may try to use the anonymity of Wyoming corporations to essentially launder money. If we make their website, we require them to disclose beneficial use and make it more easily searchable, we have more transparency, better customer service.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway?
State agencies currently are working on the rules and regulations right now so that they can get rid of some of those rules that are not necessary, and it will go on a searchable database. The Secretary of State's website continues to evolve. One of the real problems on it is the campaign reporting, and that needs to be taken care of as soon as I get in as Secretary of State. It's a very difficult website. I worked on it for 7 years as a legislator. it still is a problem to navigate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray, you have a rebuttal.
Thank you. The website, as I indicated, needs improvement. I think Max's legacy will be that he did digitize the Secretary of State's office, combined with his efforts in fighting fraud in the shell companies. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Aaron Schrank for Mr. Buchanan.
Mr. Buchanan, some are critical that the State Loan and Investment Board has given too much funding to larger communities. How can the playing field be leveled?
You know, it's one of those things where you have to look at that and look at the statistics and look at the actual numbers and see if that's reality or if that's perception. I think some of that is economy of scale. In other words, smaller communities, you know, have smaller industry. Places like Cheyenne perhaps are more visible, and perhaps there's a perception there that they get more than their fair share, maybe because they think, you know, the capital is located there or the business council works out of there. I would say this, part of my 5-point plan is to be an ambassador for the state of Wyoming, specifically when it comes to being a member of the State Loan and Investment Board. I have pledged to communities as I've traveled all around the state, listening to the locals, to represent all of them, listen to their needs and their concerns statewide, whether it's Uintah County, the Bighorn Basin, Park County, or Crook, because government is too centralized in Cheyenne, frankly, and they need a voice in Cheyenne, and I've pledged to be that voice for them.
Mr. Buchanan, thank you. Mr. Stith.
Thank you. The State Loan Investment Board has 3 statutory priorities. The first is to deal with public health and safety emergencies. The second is to comply with the mandates of federal and state law. And the third is for so-called other necessary projects. I believe we should focus on these public health and safety emergencies, providing clean water. I think it's also a really good idea to have a regional balance on the board so that you have someone from the western part of the state on the board. And by choosing me from Rock Springs, Wyoming, you would get exactly that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
My comments on the SLIB board is, and I've talked to the governor about this, is to allow people from faraway areas such as Cody or Jackson that need to go before the SLIB board is to be able to do that on closed circuit TV or Skype or whatever. It takes them a long time to get to Cheyenne. And the other program is to have the SLIB board come out into the various areas of the state and work on those programs, show the citizens how it goes through, and make sure that the grants and loans that are given out, how that happens, and allow the citizens to present before the SLIB board their thoughts. It's an important progress, and it's a way to get Cheyenne out into the state.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray.
I'm excited for this question because it further distinguishes me from my opponents, especially those with the longtime political background. As I've traveled throughout the counties and have met with the local governments, if there's one thing that resonates and is a common theme from each town and county and city, is that they have been starved, they have been strangled for the last 12 years since de-earmarking occurred, with lack of predictability of funding and with lack of funding that has enabled them to do the good things necessary for local government. I'm the only candidate up here who's truly local government. The others have a record, a history of opposing the efforts of local governments to receive they have been unable, the local governments, to have any predictability and certainty in funding.
Mr. Murray, thank you. Mr. Buchanan, time for your rebuttal.
Just briefly, I think Mr. Murray's the only candidate up here that doesn't have a command of his facts, and perhaps some political experience would benefit him in this area. The fact of the matter is local governments have not been strangled. They've made or received more money than they did before de-earmarking. And the only thing that's true is we do need consistency and predictability, but a lot of that is to do with the boom and bust nature of our economy.
Thank you very much. Candidates, we're at the final question of our debate tonight from Mr. Peck from the Ranger for Mr. Stith.
Sir, service on the many administrative boards in Wyoming is a significant portion of the Secretary of State's job. How do you view the prospect of your service on these boards, and are there any specifically that would draw on your particular interests or expertise?
Thank you. The three most important boards, I believe, are the State Loan Investment Board, the Board of Land Commissioners, and the State Building Commission. On the State Loan Investment Board, I do care a lot about cities and towns. I serve on the Rock Springs City Council. That's what I do. The State Loan Investment Board has a critical role to play for infrastructure projects. I believe we can provide clean water projects and things that benefit the entire community. On the State Building Commission, normally a sleepy commission, but the legislature just approved over $250 million to renovate the Capitol. That's already been done in terms of the appropriation. My background, I think, would assist in making, my goal is to make sure that through a troubled project process, that doesn't turn into $400 million or $500 million, because public projects often become troubled. Finally, the Board of Land Commissioners, no net increase in state lands, and we continue our policy of multiple use.
Thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you. I am a public sector member on the Capital Renovation Board, and we were very carefully going through how that's going to happen. The amount of money, it's not only the Capitol building, but it's the Hirschler building. That building hasn't been updated in 30 years. In the Capitol building, I would hope that the elected officials that are in there now stay in that building, and that would be the Secretary of State, the Auditor, and the Treasurer. As far as working on the SLIB board, I am cognizant of that because sitting on the Business Council, I do understand how the SLIB board works. And the Board of Land Commissioners is a very important part of state government because they have oversight over 3.5 million acres of surface land. And the State Building Commission has oversight of all the state buildings in the state. And I visited a bunch of them, and we have done a pretty good job.
Thank you very much, Mr. Illoway. Mr. Murray.
With respect to the SLIB board, I'll offer a perspective that advocates for investment, more of Wyoming wealth into our communities. This is a sound, conservative business principle. On the Land Commission, I will advocate and support a balanced use, a multi-use. We must protect those energy-based industries, which are the pillar of our economy, but we must also protect our outdoor resources that enable us to hunt and fish and commune with Mother Nature. On the Building Commission, due to my background, I know a little something about construction and building, and a half-baked job or an idea from something that's solid and has foundation. And I'll take my experience and expertise to each of those boards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you. I think out of the three that have been mentioned, the most important, I would say, were the State Loan Investment Board and the Office of State Lands. Specifically the State Loan Investment Board, that is the conduit, that's the agent that goes out to the communities and does things with business-ready community, business enhancement, all of the tools that the legislature gave to the Business Council and the SLIB board over the years to make sure that communities have the infrastructure they need based on health, safety, and welfare, and to attract new businesses. I've represented many communities before the SLIB board as my role as a representative in the Wyoming State Legislature. With regard to state lands, I think we need to continue our emphasis on multiple use and maintaining those lands for maximum economic benefit, because it funds many of our the Boys and Girls School, the retirement home, our schools in general, and a lot of people don't realize that our forestry division is under there too. And so addressing the pine beetle is another big issue that Wyoming needs to address in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buchanan. Mr. Stith?
Yes.
Rebuttal.
Thank you. The third tool, my small government toolkit, is to use SLIB and Business Council funding in an innovative way to draw in, through crowdfunding, additional private capital to revitalize downtown areas. And that could be used to get the government ultimately out of the real estate business while maximizing state funds.
Thank you very much. We're nearing the end of our debates. Candidates, we are truly thankful for your participation. And now it's your turn to have the last word. In a predetermined order, we now offer each candidate an opportunity for a closing statement. Mr. Murray, you'll be first.
Thank you to PBS and Aaron, Steve, and Craig for your moderation tonight. I want to address the people of Wyoming, the citizens. I am Ed Murray, and I hope that you understand what I have been advocating for this entire campaign. It involves new blood, and it involves freedom, freedom to pursue your dreams. My family and I have traveled over 40,000 miles throughout Wyoming since April, and we've been fortunate to meet tens of thousands of Wyoming citizens and are so grateful for the kindness and friendship that you have shown to us. I will take my 5 pillars of my platform to the Secretary of State's office. I will modernize and digitize the business office. I will fight fraud and scams. I'll safeguard fair elections and increase voter turnout. I'll make wise decisions on the boards and commissions upon which I sit through the lens of constitutionality and transparency. And finally, I will advocate for the investment of greater Wyoming wealth into our communities. This is Wyoming's wealth, and it does belong in Wyoming instead of on Wall Street. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be an honor to serve you as your next Secretary of State, and I ask for your vote now or on August 19th, and may God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Mr. Murray, thank you very much. Mr. Illoway.
Thank you, Craig. My thanks to Wyoming Public TV and the people who put this debate together. It's been wonderful. My campaign has centered on my experience in agriculture, banking, business, legislation, and economic development. And my theme throughout my campaign has been experience matters. Wyoming people deserve the most experienced candidate in this race. It's about honesty, integrity, loyalty, fairness, and trust. The campaign is about you, the voter, and your future, Wyoming's future. I have a proven track record of trust, integrity, and honesty. I want to serve with pride, and I want to serve the state of Wyoming. I intend to be working every day as your Secretary of State. I want to look towards the future and not dwell on the past. I want to work towards civility and commonality. Wyoming deserves a Secretary of State working for you every day. I'm not running for any other office now or in the future. I'm a strong believer in limited government, free markets, states' rights, and individual liberty. I want to serve with pride, and I want to serve with my other elected officials and fight back against the government, against the federal government. This race is about experience. Experience really does matter, and I ask for your vote now or on August 19th. Thank you.
Mr. Illoway, thank you very much. Mr. Stith.
Thank you. I would like to thank Wyoming PBS, the members of the live audience, those in the viewing audience, as well as the listening audience. Thank you for participating tonight by taking time out of your day to be here. The politics really does matter. Politics is how we get things done. Sometimes it may seem small, it may seem grubby, and often these issues may even seem dull. But it's so important because we need what prevents our society, what prevents our country from collapsing is getting politics right. What we have to do is get the size of government right. That is the most pressing issue facing the state of Wyoming right now. Big government is not merely expensive. Big government chips away at our core values of individual liberty, self-reliance, and personal responsibility. We have to stop the one-way ratchet of government growth. And what I have proposed, and I don't want to exaggerate the significance of it or that this will save the world, but we have to start somewhere to make the government perform both smoother, give better customer service, while right-sizing it. I believe in the responsible use of government. The Secretary of State employees, they're professional, they're courteous, they're hardworking. There are just a few too many of them. We need to right-size the government. My name is Clark Stith, and I ask you for your vote on August 19th.
Mr. Stith, thank you very much. Mr. Buchanan.
Thank you to PBS, and thank you to the people of Wyoming for tuning in tonight, and thank you for the folks here in the audience. I'm running for this position because I love Wyoming. I love serving, and I have the actual experience to be successful in the job. You saw tonight why experience matters, and more than ever, I believe Wyoming needs elected officials who will champion the values and the ideas of those who elected them, and I want to be that leader for you. Now, I was the first to come out with a 5-point plan of what I wanted to do in the office, and that included the open and transparent government. It included improving the customer service, being proactive in the fight against corporate, consumer, and election fraud, and being efficient and responsive and keeping budgets in check. And the final point of that, which we've alluded to tonight and I've spoke on briefly, is I want to be an ambassador for the state of Wyoming. I want to serve the people, I want to be out in the communities, and the Secretary of State on the various boards and commissions has a very unique responsibility and role to play in representing all the citizens of Wyoming, voicing their concerns and their needs back to Cheyenne. I pledge to you tonight to be a public servant of whom you can be proud. I will be accessible, I won't let you down, and if you want a proven record of conservative leadership, then you'll vote for me on August 19th. And thank you very much.
Mr. Buchanan, thank you very much. That's it for our debates. I want to truly thank our 4 candidates for this lively debate and offer my special thanks to Steve Peck from The Ranger and Aaron Schrank from Wyoming Public Media. Also thanks to our Wyoming PBS crew who are working hard behind the scenes, keeping the cameras and microphones working tonight. Tomorrow, please join us for our last in our series of primary debates, when we'll hear from the Democratic candidates and then the Republican candidates for the United States Senate. Those debates will begin tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Also, plan to join us again this fall, when Wyoming PBS will bring together general election candidates for another series of engaging live debates. You can see all of these debates streamed again at wyomingpbs.org. From all of us at Wyoming PBS, thanks again, and good evening.
Thanks.
For more information on this and other local programs, visit our website,